Hi, welcome back to the longestshir.com, the 18-hour shiur. We're getting closer to our goal of 18 hours. We've been doing this live. We've been going strong since 11:59 Pacific Standard Time, and it's now 12:58 here locally in Los Angeles. I want to personally invite those of you who are at home. If you're in the area, stop on by. Feel free to come on in, join us. If you're, by the way, we have Mincha at 3 p.m., so we'd love to see you here at 3 p.m. It's the one chance, I guess, to rest my voice for a couple minutes. Let's get you here for Mincha. And we'll continue straight to our last shiur, which starts at 5 p.m. and is over at 6 p.m. The shiur right now is about new distinctions in child raising, which is what I want to speak about. I also want to talk to you about that you can make a donation online, longestshir.com. I want to announce the winner, actually. Oh, I had my list. We've been offering incentives each hour. Last round, we offered a Muhammad Ali signed poster for the one who has donated the highest amount in the last hour, and that was David Gershov. We thank David Gershov for his contribution. We're going to be sending a Muhammad Ali signed poster your way. The sponsor on this hour, I want to thank a very generous anonymous sponsor from Canada, who has donated and dedicated this hour. We appreciate your support. If you want to dedicate an hour, let us know. Text us at 41444. Text the word Torah, and that'll allow you to make a contribution, a donation. What are we giving away this hour? It's a very special hour. Very rare. I have a signed letter, exceptionally rare. I was given a signed letter from Rav Twersky, who is the Tolna Rebbe, a letter, the Tolna Chernobyl Rebbe, Rav Twersky, who wrote to Rav Avram Eger of Lublin. Those who have been listening to the shiurim have heard me talk about the Eger family, Rav Leibel Eger, his son Rav Avram Eger. We have the only one in existence, a letter from, and by the way, our giveaways as the hour moves on are going to get better and better and better. We have one of the only letters in the world, the only letter, of the Chernobyl Rebbe, Rav Twersky, writing to Rav Avram Eger of Lublin, a private, public now, but a private letter to Rav Eger. The highest bidder this hour, the highest giver this hour will receive that amazing letter. Don't be dissuaded. Even small amounts count. Small amounts make a difference. This topic, this shiur, right now, this hour is about Jewish education, and therefore that kind of giving is going to have an effect, and it will make a difference. Okay. I'd like to take you on a journey with me to different parts of the globe and share with you some powerful paradigm shifts that can empower us as parents, as individuals, and as a global community. It's amazing. By the way, the fact that we're online like this connects us. I mean, we said goodnight to some of the kids that were watching in Israel, the Katz family, 2 hours ago. It's amazing that we can be in different parts of the globe and share Torah with each other. Now, I want to start in the Dordogne region of southern France. From there, I'm going to want to move to Penang, Malaysia, then on to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we'll close in Beit Shemesh, Israel. In Dordogne, France, in the Plum Garden, there comes a beautiful idea. I have here a sefer with lots of pieces of paper. This sefer and these paper have absolutely nothing to do with the clouds that may be outside or the rain that may fall outside. Or does it? There's a brilliant metaphysical philosopher who lives in Plum Garden. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He says that without a cloud, there can be no rain. Without a rain, the trees cannot grow. Without trees, we can't make paper. The cloud, then, is essential for the paper to exist. If the cloud is not here, then the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So in a sense, we could say that the cloud and the paper are or in the word that he uses, interbeing. You can technically see the cloud in this paper because it can only be here because of a cloud. Now, look a little closer at the paper. You could see the sunshine. If the sunshine is not there, the forest can't grow. In fact, nothing can grow. So in these papers are actually the clouds, the rains, the forests, and everything interbeing. Everything is enmeshed. Everything is connected. That's the idea he shared with us. It's a powerful idea, interbeing. Very powerful. Think of the objects we wear, how closely everything is related to each other, how all of us are so closely related to each other. Our tradition has the idea of interbeing. I'll give you an example. The first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, when he was on his deathbed, he was laying down flat and there was a beam above his head, and they asked him what he saw as he was leaving this world. Let's get a glimpse of what the Baal Tanya sees. And the Baal Tanya said, in the place where there used to be a korah, a beam, korah in Hebrew is the Hebrew word for beam. In the place of a beam, I now see the Hebrew letters Kuf Vav Resh Hey. What does that mean? He saw the Hebrew letters. You see, the Baal Tanya got to a place in his life when he was leaving this world where he realized all of existence is just a formulation of Hebrew letters. This table is being sustained spiritually by the letters Shin, Lamed, Chet, Nun, Shulchan. Everything is being sustained by Hebrew letters. Therefore, everything is interbeing. That which sustains this book is the very thing that sustains this watch and the very thing that sustains this iPad. You know, if you've ever seen Lahavdil, the movie The Matrix, when he finally, Neo cracked the code and he sees everything is digital coding, digital numbers. The Baal Tanya was the first one to crack the code. And he saw that the whole world was made up of Hebrew letters everywhere he went. That's what it means, interbeing. That's what it means to have everything is connected. This goes back to the story. What time was story time last night? Story time last night, Hasidic stories, and their analysis was 3 a.m. We told the story of the Schmaltz. What was the story of the Schmaltz? I love that story of the Schmaltz. Sure, I'll tell it over. The story of the Schmaltz was as follows. Rav Levi of Yitzchak Berditchev was known to be very wild, and he couldn't control himself around holy things. He wanted to go eat over at the house of Rav Baruch of Mezhebuz. Now, they were like two opposite ends of the spectrum. Rav Baruch of Mezhebuz was like a very calm, collected, a Yekesher Rebbe. Everything was organized and clean. Rav Baruch of Mezhebuz told Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, I want to have you over, a holy man like you, but I can't have you coming over making meshiga in my house. You can't come and make a scene. So Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev says, I have an idea. I know what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to say any tefillos out loud. Don't ask me to pray anything. I'll just answer amen to what you say. Don't ask me to make kiddush. Don't ask me to make anything. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it at all. So the plan was a good one. Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev was going to control himself by not letting out a prayer, and Rav Baruch of Mezhebuz was going to have a nice tefillah. He comes over his house for Shabbos dinner, and Rav Baruch of Mezhebuz comes to the table in the most beautiful talis that he used to wear at the Shabbos table, shining, the metal pieces were shining radiantly, and there was Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, and he's trying to control himself. He's already getting so emotional over this ecstatic Shabbos scenario. They start with the Kiddush, and he's grabbing onto the edge of the table not to go nuts, because the Kiddush is so amazing when Rav Baruch Mezhebuz makes Kiddush. He doesn't want to make his own Kiddush because he's afraid he's going to lose it. Rav Baruch Mezhebuz makes Kiddush, sings Shalom Aleichem, Eshet Chayil, and he just says Amen and nods to everything. He's under control. He's good. He sits down at the table, and Rav Baruch Mezhebuz, of course, has a gabbai who's going to come bring out the food. And by the Hasidim, they have two types of fish. They have sweet fish and they have sour fish. There's a little bit of a machlokis what Hasidim are supposed to have first. The sour fish or the sweet fish. Right? Which one do you have first? The gabbai comes over to Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, who's already tsittering under the table. He's shaking and can't control himself. It's so amazing what's happening right now. The gabbai turns to him and says, do you want sweet fish? And by the way, he's now forced to decide which one he wants first. he has no choice. He has to open his mouth. Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev says, sweet fish, I love sweet Torah, I love sweet music, and he loses it. He knocks the tray of the gefilte fish up in the air, and the schmaltz from the fish is on the ceiling, and it drops all over Rav Baruch of Mezherbaz's new talis, and everyone is quiet. Rav Baruch of Mezherbaz says, I am never going to wash this talis ever again. This is the talis that has been stained by the heilige energy and the passion of the holy Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev. It has his schmaltz on it. And according to legend, the schmaltz talis of Rav Baruch of Mezherbaz was passed on for generations until it died with the Munkacher Rebbe. What am I telling you about the schmaltz talis for? About the schmaltz talis. I think that's also this idea of interbeing. What is the idea? He didn't want to wash his talis. He didn't wash his talis. What it means is the kedusha, the passion and energy of Rav Levi Yitzchak Berditchev was transferred into the fish. The fish was transferred to the schmaltz to the ceiling, down to the talis. The talis was in Rav Baruch Mezherbaz, passed on to the other Rebbes, and it was all infused back to the source of Chassidus, the kedusha of the Baal Shem Tov. That's interbeing. That's interbeing. Think about malacha on Shabbos. Where do we get the isser of some of the malachas on Shabbos? Where do they come from? They come from the activities that were prohibited in the Mishkan. The things that could not be done in the Mishkan on Shabbos is that which is prohibited on Shabbos. So, for example, we're not allowed to color on Shabbos. Where do we know that we're not allowed to color on Shabbos? Or how do we know we're not allowed to cook? One of the reasons why we're not allowed to cook on Shabbos is because they used to cook up the dye for the curtains of the Mishkan. For the curtains of the Mishkan. That's so interbeing. That's exactly what Thich Nhat Hanh is saying. Because think about it. Now, every time that you don't cook on Shabbos, you eat something cooked before Shabbos, you are standing mamish in the Mishkan. Why? Because the prohibition not to cook on Shabbos comes from the prohibition not to do a malacha in the Mishkan. That was taking the dye from an animal and heating it up and preparing it. That was in the Mishkan, which means you are now standing in the Mishkan whenever you stay away from cooking food on Shabbos. That's interbeing. That's how halacha views itself. Everything is enmeshed. The Mishkan, you know where the poles of the Mishkan came from? The krushim? The krushim of the Mishkan came from Avraham's Eshel Avram that he planted to make his guests comfortable. The krushim, according to our tradition, were carried from his arazim. That means every time you stepped into the Mishkan, you were thinking of Avram's kindness to strangers. Now think about it. The Mishkan ultimately became a Beis HaMikdash. So when you stepped into the Beis HaMikdash, you were thinking of the Mishkan and therefore thinking of Avram's kindness. Now take it a step further. When there was no more Beis HaMikdash, the shul became the replacement of the Beis HaMikdash. So now when you walk into the shul, you're thinking of the Mikdash. When you think of the Mikdash, you think of the Mishkan. When you think of the Mikdash, you think of Avram's original kindness to the strangers that passed by. And now you're interbeing. Now everybody's connected. You're now directly connected to the story of Avram being visited to the angels after he was circumcised, and the future legacy of the Jewish people was sown on that day. That's interbeing. I'll tell you how deep this goes. If you look at how the Chumash describes the parts of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, very strange. It says that you lock together the yados of the Mishkan, the hands of the Mishkan. Then it says you would put the tzalos, like the ribs of the Mishkan together. Then you would take the raglayim, the legs of the Mishkan, and it's all, you realize after another, it's all described in human body parts. The whole Mishkan is described in human body parts. Why? Rabbeinu B'chaya says because you were supposed to see yourself in the Mishkan. It was supposed to be a diagram of the best you. That was the Mishkan. So now this whole thing goes so deep. You're now in the Mishkan, which means you're now in the shul, you're in the Beis HaMikdash, you're carried through, you're over there, you're all the way in. That's where you are. Interbeing. It's a powerful way of looking at relationships between things that seem disconnected, the different parts. You can't leave a person crying on the floor begging for bread if you understand that we're all connected. They were all connected through Avram and Etziva from Hashem and all around. That powerful lesson is essential for growth. We need each other. We are interbeing. We're connected. You can't just leave somebody stranded. They're part of you. They're another arm of you. They're your leg. You can't. If someone's knocking on your, someone's knocking on your door, they want tzedakah. It's very hard. You can have a steady stream of people that constantly come, but you can't say no to you when you're knocking the door. If you look at interbeing in that way, that's mamish how we view it. It's the same way. There's one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. Bed knobs and broomsticks. Loved Bed knobs and broomsticks. 1971 Disney film. Professor Emilius Brown, who was a charlatan. He was a fake, a phony. A nice guy, though. He really likes Mrs. Price, who's like trying to be a good witch. Was what's her name? From Angelo Lansbury. Now, she has half of a book of a secret spell, executionary locomotion, and she needs the other half of the book. And the whole story is about her trying to find the other half of the book. That's us. Us without taking care of the other person who's in need is having half of the book. You're not shalem. You're missing something. You're missing part of the organic whole if you're not there taking care of another Jew. If you're not there for another person, you're missing some of the magic of Judaism. You cannot be all about yourself and expect to have a meaningful Judaism. It's not possible. You're missing part of the story. The ikar is ikar chaser min ha-sefer. The main thing is missing. It's one of my favorite divrei Torah on the Haggadah from the Baba Rebbe. The Baba Rebbe says, why do you break the matzah right before you tell the story, the Magid? You know why the Baba Rebbe says? Because every Jew has to go into the Seder realizing that they don't have the whole story. They're missing part of the story. Something's gone. Something's not there. So you break the matzah to say, I don't know everything. I don't know everything. A couple hours ago in the Shiur, we quoted Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger's understanding of Lashon Hara. What a powerful idea. You know what Lashon Hara is? It's you not acknowledging that what you just judged in the other person is the problem you yourself have. When you talk about, oh, that person's such a yenta, this, and that, what are you doing? You're yenting about the person being a yenta. How could you yenta about someone being a yenta? It means that you're the yenta. That's Lashon Hara. That which you discover in others is because you have that same issue, or else you wouldn't recognize it. Ikar chaser min ha-sefer. Ikar chaser min ha-sefer. You break the middle matzah to acknowledge, I don't have the full story. The ketores, the incense, needed to be next to the menorah. Specifically, interrelationships, interbeing. That's the same idea. The Mishkan, as I said before, had the beams from Avram's chesed. That was right next to the skins. You know where the skins were from? The Gemara says from Adam. So now Adam is connected to Avram. Avram's connected to the Mishkan. Mishkan's connected to the Mikdash. Mikdash connected to the Shul. We're in the Shul. That means we're back to Adam. We're all the way back to the beginning, interbeing. And when the pieces don't seem to fit together, that's when art is made. I saw a great interview in the Wharton Journal. They interviewed, what's his name? M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan. The guy who made the movie Sixth Sense. And he says like this. He says, people always ask, how come Paul McCartney doesn't write great songs anymore? This is like Api courses, I have to be careful to say such a thing. How come Paul McCartney doesn't write great songs anymore? So he says, you know why? When you've reached a level of success, you lose the will to be courageous. Because as a human beings, we're meant to be very efficient. And when you get to such efficiency, you don't feel like something's missing anymore. You're not hungry for anything anymore. Everything, all the pieces fit together perfectly. Our brains become so efficient at everything, there's nothing to work on anymore. There's nothing to struggle with. There's nothing to write about in your music. There's nothing to sing about. That's interbeing. It's realizing that we're always missing something. Part of the picture is not there. There is something lacking, and we need to fill it in. You know, I take this idea a little further. When the Mishkan was moving through the desert, there was always a cloud and a fire. The cloud is described as resting on top of the Mishkan. And in Bamidbar, it's also described as directing the Israelites in the desert by day. The fire directed the Israelites at night, Bnei Yisrael at night, and it confirmed that God accepted your korban. Right? By the way, together, that's shamayim. What's shamayim? The word shamayim? The word shamayim is a composite of two words. Eish, fire, and mayim, which is water. Eish and mayim, shamayim. That's the two words together. Water is the stuff that clouds are made of. Clouds are like a protective cover. They're life-giving rain. They're security. It's growth, development. What's fire? Fire expresses warmth, which also nurtures life. It's passion. It's creativity, right? The Torah says as long as the cloud was on the Ohel Moed, Moshe could not go in until God called him. So the cloud on one hand was so protective and nurturing, but when it's over the Ohel Moed, you can't go in. Fire can bring warmth, but it can also devour and destroy. You can benefit greatly from drawing close to fire, but you can get burnt by it. So what is that telling you? It's telling you they need each other. You need fire and water. Go back to our shiur about Yerushalayim. We talked about Yerushalayim stands for Yira and Shalem. Michael, Michael, and Gabriel. Fire and water, right? Power and softness, fluidity. The quartz stone and the jasper stone coming together. And that's what we all need. We need to realize that we're not complete without each other. And that's interbeing. We're all enmeshed and we're all connected to each other. And that realization is very powerful. And why that's key in education, it's key in raising our children, is to see those things that frustrate us. None of us want to accept that somewhere deep down, it's part of us. We contribute to that in our children. And we can't get angry about that. Our sign of anger, he says it so beautifully. Who wrote the 4 agreements? Miguel Ruiz. Miguel Ruiz says when we get angry, it's because some wound on us has just been touched. When we get angry at what someone else did, it's because it can only affect us because we have that same issue. We do the same thing. If we never do the same thing, it would never bother us. We know it because we do it. We only recognized that sneakiness because we're sneaky in some way, or else we wouldn't have noticed it in other people. We never would have detected it. We only detect it because we have it too. Next idea. Enough was said with that. That's interbeing. Let's leave the plum garden of France and move to Buenos Aires, Argentina. I read an article about somebody whose name I had known, but I didn't know his story, and his name was Miguel Najdorf. He was a chess master. He died about 15 years ago. He was an amazing Argentinian chess player. He had a very successful chess career. He beat many of the masters, but ironically, he was never declared the master himself. He was never declared a master. Now, there was something that he did that I never knew why he did it. There's a strange variation of chess called blindfold chess. You don't really put on a blindfold, but you play without looking at the board. And only a few people could do it because you have to keep the whole board in your head. Some of the highest rank have been able to play 20 or boards or so at the same time without looking. And in 1947, to the astonishment of everybody who heard about this, he played 45 opponents at once. 39 of them he won, he lost 2, and he tied 4 times. It took him 29 hours. It's a record that nobody has even come close to. But why did he do this stunt? I found out why. Listen to this. He wasn't born Miguel Najdorf. He was born Mendel Najdorf, a Jew in Poland. 1939, he's invited to play in a tournament in Argentina. He goes, and a week later, the Nazis invade Poland. He couldn't go back, and he never hears from his family again. He couldn't go back and get the news about what happened. He has no idea what became of them. So after the war, he tries everything to get information about his family. He racked his brain to come up with a way to get word out to them. So he figured, I'm going to have to make the news. How am I going to make the news? I need to do something extraordinary. He didn't do this for fame. He didn't do it to pull a stunt, but he wanted to use the ideas he wanted to be used by love and memory, so that if somebody was still alive in his family, they would find him again. To me, that's a huge paradigm shift. It's all about why. It's all about why. There's a great TED Talk and a book that followed by Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek says it's all about the why. Everything is about why. That's the key. He said, for example, look at Apple's, their mission statement. Apple starts with the why. Okay? Why? Because we make great computers. Then it goes to the how. They're user-friendly, beautiful designed, easy to use. And then the what? Want to buy one? You understand? It's the reverse, what most people do. You start with the why. Why Apple? Because we make great computers. The what, the how is, how are they great? And then you finish with the what. Simon Sinek argues is that nowadays you've got to start with the why. With everything we do, we aim to challenge the status quo. We aim to think differently. Our products are user-friendly, but you have to start with the why. You have to start with the why. That's the concept of shachanti b'socham. Why was there a Mishkan? What was the purpose? The purpose was not the sticks and stones. The purpose was not the building. The purpose was a way for the people to be inspired to bring God down here on earth. The moment we treated each other poorly, gone. It's finished. There's no more Mishkan. The Beis HaMikdash was ultimately destroyed for sinas chinam. It was destroyed for being terrible to each other. Why was it destroyed? It's a building. It was destroyed because you have to ask yourself the why. Why is there the Beis HaMikdash? It's a place for everyone to collect, to come together. You have to start with the why. And I think that's an important place for our children as well, to start with the question of why. Do you know why we're doing this? Do you understand why? You know, I'm guilty of this all the time. We explain to kids the reason why we do something, right? Why do we do something? We do it because we're going to get, put on your seatbelt. You know why? Because the police are going to pull us over. Oh, all the time. That's the wrong answer. That's not the why. That's not the why. The why is because of how dangerous it really is to be in a car without a seatbelt. When your children find out that no police are really stopping anybody anymore for seatbelts, not too much, in the back seat certainly not, the gig is up. It's over. What's your reason then? You got to start with the authentic why, starting from the concept of Simon Sinek, to understand why Mendel Miguel Najdorf, this Jew from Poland, did what he did. The key and the critical point of education in our time is that our kids are going to need to understand why. You see, our generation, or the millennial generation, I should say, the millennial generation is the social generation. We did it because we had the chevra. That's what the chevra was in for. We wanted some fun experiences. The next generation is going to be motivated by the why. We need to know why we're doing it before we're doing something. Give us the reasons for why we're doing this. That's the second idea. Let's move out of Buenos Aires in Argentina and let's take a trip now to Penang, Malaysia. The gift of rain. There's a book, Gift of Rain, by Tan Twain Eng. I'll give you a quote from the book. You were born with the gift of rain. Your life will be abundant with wealth and success, but life will test you greatly. What's the idea behind the book? The idea behind the book of the gift of rain, rain is a symbol of abundance. It makes things grow. It means you're prosperous. It's propitious. But at the same time, too much rain is flooding. It destroys. It destroys everything in its path. Abundance is a tool. Our children don't need to be taught to reject abundance. They're going to be growing up within abundance. They need to be taught the tools of how to use the abundance this generation has in this life. Abundance could be crippling. It could teach someone to be lazy and never work and never accomplish. Or the abundance could teach them, you have all this, now do something with it. That's the gift of rain. You look at, again, I'm staying on this theme of the Mishkan, but you look at the Mishkan and it was filled with this wealth, gold and silver, the vessels in the Mishkan, and the garments of the Kohen Gadol must be made of gold and silver and bronze of rich fabric. Don't we believe the verse in Micha? It's a good pasuk if you're memorizing psukim. Micha Perek Vav pasuk Chet is Hatzne Halechet Im Hashem. It's one of those top 20 Tanakh psukim you got to have in the pocket. Hatzne Halechet Im Hashem. You're supposed to walk humbly before God. Why all of a sudden, when it comes to the Mishkan, we're so angepatched over there? Doesn't the Torah believe, Pas b'melech tochal, you should eat bread with salt? So there's a good, nice, friendly debate among the Hasidic Rebbes whether the Rebbes are supposed to be wealthy or poor. Rav Yisrael of Vigen was known for living regal and royalty. He used to come out on a chariot with a crown and the whole 9 yards. That was the way of Vigen. You ever go to a tish of the descendant of the Vigeners, the Biana Rebbe, it's Malchus. It's another world. It's like you're by a kingdom. But then there was the way of Rav Uri of Strolisker and the Kotsk. Mamish looked like schleppers. They had nothing. They had ripped clothing. What was their fight all about? Rav Uri of Strolisker believed that the people need to understand how to make do with little. The Vigener believed the people need to be uplifted and to seek glory and splendor. To each their own. That's why each have their own group of Hasidim. Different people want different things. Hey, when people pick a school, Sometimes the people want to see that down-to-earth, small, hole in the wall. Oh, it's warm, it's small, it's nothing happening here. And sometimes people want to be professional and big and splendor. Every different strokes for different folks. It's the way of Rishon, and it's the way of Rav Uri of Strolisk. Different, by the way, Rav Uri of Strolisk, we never talk about him enough. Rav Uri of Strolisk, they say if you looked him in the eyes, your eyes burnt. Your eyes mamish burnt. Those Hasidic stories are never true. That's not the point. The fact that they tell it about Rav Uri of Strolisk tells you how he was conceived by the people around him. He was seen as being a holy fire. They say that Rabbi Yisrael of Rishon, he was the one who would live with regal and royalty. When he would go to bed at night, he would take off his shoes and he would empty the rocks from his shoe. You understand the idea? That on the outside, he portrayed grandeur and splendor. But in the day-to-day, he looked like what he felt internally was that. So how are we supposed to conclude? We're told to eat bread and salt. We're told to be Hatznei Alechem and Hashem. And then we're told about the gold and the silver and the Mishkan. We have Rishon, we have Uri of Strolisk. My head's going to explode. Which one is it? What are we asked to? We come back to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Simin Nun Vav. Yesh b'chol echad mi Yisrael. Every Jew has within them an element, a bechina, an aspect of malchus, of royalty. V'chel echad lefi bechina so, kain yesh lo bechinas malchus. And so to everybody according to their level, they have malchus. Regalness, I would say. Some people have the regalness in their home, and some people have the ability to have that regalness. Is that the right word? Regalness? Regality. People have that quality of being regal. They have that beyond the scope of their home. Okay, so what does he do with that? Every single person, says Rabbi Nachman, must not use the aspect of royalty for themselves and for their own needs. Their royalty and the aspect of that royalty, right? It shouldn't be that he becomes a slave to his royalty. The opposite. You need to be in control of your royalty and to use it at your whim to help others. You hear that statement? You need to be able to be, the real free person is the person who's not a slave to what they have, but they use what they have in their control. I want to give to you. I want to give to you. That's Mordechai. That was exactly Mordechai. Mordechai had this power, him and Esther, this regalness that they were able to share. They were able to share with the entire kingdom. Achashverosh, his wealth was for himself. What he had was entirely for himself. Not so Mordechai and Esther. You know, I think about this concept of Mordechai and Esther and this notion of royalty. And Judaism says, don't reject the royalty. It's there in the Mishkan, the gold, the silver. Don't reject the royalty. Judaism is there to teach you how to use the royalty. That's the gift of rain. The gift of rain is that it's abundance, it's blessing, it's beautiful. But at the same time, used in the wrong way and too much and without the proper tools to receive it, it can destroy. You know, it says in the end of Sefer Dvarim, it says, Ve'avo alecha kol habrachos, and all the blessings will come upon you, v'hisigucha. What does it mean, v'hisigucha? What's that word? So they asked the Kotzker, what does v'hisigucha mean? And the Kotzker says, you know what v'hisigucha means? It comes from the word hasagos. Hasagos means a challenge. What do you mean the blessings will be a challenge? That's the gift of rain. Sometimes the blessings in our life are going to be our greatest challenge. You know what? That's why when you have Adar, the month of Purim, Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, that's the same month that we say Tachanun. We don't get rid of Tachanun. Tachanun is a sad prayer. You would think you'd get rid of it in the month of Adar. But Adar, the lesson is one of balance, opportunity, blessing, simcha, abundance in our lives, rain. But you got to have the balance That's essential to raising children in our generation. You could show them all the fancy things. We got the iPads and the iPods and the tchotchkes and everything like that. But if you're not going to teach the children how to use the gift of rain, we've lost a generation. We've mamish lost a generation. That's the gift of rain. Let's leave Malaysia for a moment and fly now to Beit Shemesh, Israel. In Beit Shemesh, Israel, there's someone by the name of Rav Itamar Schwartz. He tried to stay anonymous for a while. And that didn't work. And we now know who the author is of his 10 volumes. His name isn't in any of them. And he has a book on child raising. And he shares the following idea. He says that, we try to impart wisdom into our children, and sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. Why does it work sometimes and sometimes it doesn't work? So you could say sometimes you have a more stubborn child, sometimes you're less stubborn, sometimes you don't follow through as well, sometimes you follow through, in a better level. What's the difference why it works and says a hit or miss? He says no. He says it's about creating a pipeline. You need to create a conduit. If you create the proper pipeline in the relationship between you and your children, then all of a sudden you could send down all the messages you need to send down. Think of that game, that mousetrap game, or that game we always have as kids, where you set up the whole mousetrap and then you let the ball or whatever go and see what connects. And invariably, somewhere along the way, something isn't working there. Something isn't connecting. And you got to see where it's not connecting. If you want the marble to go from point A to point B, you got to make sure the connection is there. Once the pipe is there, then you could start sharing the message. We work the opposite. We give the mussar to our children. We tell them what they do. We tell them what they need to do, what they shouldn't do, before we've created that pipeline, that emotional pipeline between us and our children. Only once we've created that pipeline can we begin to send the marble down. Can we begin to send the messages down. That's the idea of the Bilvavi Mishkan Yavneh. And he develops this idea a little further. He says we have to recognize that our children are different. And the way that we're going to create that connection, create that pipeline, is to recognize that there are different types of spirituality. Let's say we're the type of parent that loves a good Carlbach. We love a good Carlbach davening. To then assume that's what our children are going to enjoy is a mistake. We could have the kind of child who likes the order and structure, the opposite. So the Bilvavi Mishkan Yavneh breaks down 4 categories of spirituality that you can group everybody in. One is what we call thinking man's spirituality. That's people who exist with like a higher sense of order. They need to know that there's meaning in life. Why things are the way they are. Why do people suffer? It's that kid who asks all those types of questions. Why do the innocents suffer? What does it mean? Why do we have to keep kosher? Or why not? Why yes, Chol of Yisrael? Or not this? The one who needs to understand why, the thoughtful questions. Those kinds of children, one day, they'd be the ones who appreciate Rav Soloveitchik, Rav Chaim Volozhin, Rav Moshe Luzzatto, Rav Aryeh Kaplan, Rabbi Akiva Tatz. Then the different style is the style of feeling and emotion. Some enjoy the songs, the celebration, the chevra, the doing the challah together in unity as a group, the stories. That's the Hasidic mysticism, deepness, achdus, oneness. That's the kumzitz. That's the feeling child. There's the thinking child, there's the feeling child. The Bilvavi Mishkan Yavneh, Rav Itamar Schwartz says there's the being child. There's the one who just likes being present, calm, silence, just likes things to be peaceful and calm, not demanding, likes the mysterious thing, is intrigued by a report on something mysterious, something foreign, something intriguing, the meditative states, those types of experiences. And then there's the 4th level, the 4th type of spirituality, which is the child who likes the doing. They're not into the big questions. Don't hock me a china with the Carlbach davening. And don't involve me in needing to have everything quiet and still and calm, but rather doing. Get me out there. Take me to Tomchei Shabbos on Thursday night. Right? Get me out on the battlefield. Take me with you to do mivtzoyim and put it on tefillin with people on the street. Give me a point system for a token economy for how I can improve myself as a person. That's a doing type of person. We have to appreciate that we have different types of spiritual personalities and our children have different types of spiritual personalities. Some are the thinking type, some are the feeling type, some like the calm, clean being type, some are the doing, the lamaisa, get out there and do, don't hock me with philosophy, some are the doing type. And the sooner we appreciate and acknowledge which type is our children, we can make that connection instead of imposing the type of Yiddishkeit that we love, instead of imposing that upon our children and mess up the pipe, so to speak, and mess up the pipe. So to review what we have said, we talked about interbeing. We started with Fichnat, whose idea of how in the paper over here in this Gemara, you could see the rain and the clouds. Everything is interconnected in life. We talked about how we're all two parts of a whole. You can't not care about another person. It's like not caring about your arms. Like saying, I don't need it. You understand? We all are inter-are. We all relate to one another. We are two halves of the matzah. We're all parts of the Mishkan. We're all interwoven with each other. Afterwards, we moved into the idea of starting with the why. Asking ourselves the big question of why. Our children need to understand why we're doing what we're doing. Explain ourselves to be clear, or less than about a full detailed speech, but it's more about focusing on getting to the core of what we're doing. The main, the ikr, the main part. Afterwards, we went to Malaysia and we talked about the gift of rain. The gift of abundance is a tremendous blessing in our lives. Our generation has seen abundance like no other generation has seen, has been blessed in no other way. It doesn't mean it's time for us to throw that away and cast it aside. Oh, it's the devil's work. No. A Jewish approach says we have it. It's a gift from God. Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to teach your children how to use abundance, how to use success? And then we learned about Rav Itamar Schwartz, creating a pipeline, finding a way for a meaningful connection, to flourish. Okay, and that's the idea. There are so many new ideas out there, so many new ideas in education, in changing the lives of our children. We have to just be receptive to those new ideas. And the amazing thing is, once we learn about those new ideas, we realize they've always been there. They've always been there in our tradition, waiting to be discovered. Quote for you from the holy Rupshitzer. The Rupshitzer was the bouncer for the Chose of Lublin. The Rupshitzer asks, why is there so much written about what the Imahot and the Avos did, the mothers and the forefathers, but there's nothing about what angels do? We have one little story by the angels. They come to Avram and Sodom and Sarah. They destroy Sodom. But after that, angels play a very small role. We know nothing much about them. So the Rupshitzer says, because the Avos have human struggles. And that's what the Torah is all about. The Torah is created based upon human struggles. Without struggle, there is not creating of anything significant in our lives. If we're not going to work for it, nothing meaningful will be created in our lives. Nothing. And we need to know that as well when it comes to raising our children. If the going is getting difficult, understand that you are beginning to finally hit your stride. It's the opposite. When everything is just easy and just flows, that maybe something is missing in the development of our children, in their growth, in their being better people. I go back to the Noam Elimelech. I mean, it's essential for this idea. I said it in the 9 o'clock or the 8 o'clock shir, but the Noam Elimelech says, why do we say in Hallel, Pischu li sharei tzedek, open for me the gates of righteousness, zeh hashar la Hashem, that's the gate to God, tzadikim yavou bo, the righteous will go there. What's the gate? I'll make it simple, I'll shorten it. The Noam Elimelech says, that gate where you say, God, open for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I don't know what's happening here. That is mamish the gate. Then you know you're on the right path. When you have the struggle, the feeling that you're getting nowhere, that's already something. That's already getting somewhere in the spiritual development, in the positive, productive development of our children and where they're going. Okay, that's what I wanted to share with you in the concept of child raising. Raising children. We have a few extra minutes before we break before the next year, so let's continue to learn together. No retreat, no surrender. There's no big breaks here. We're going straight. I want to share with you a beautiful sefer, Karvel Nafshi, Close to My Soul. This is the book by Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger. It says like this. He starts the work by quoting from the Noam Elimelech, Rav Elimelech of Lezhensk. my wife's great-great-grandfather. Ki ha'adam tzarech leilech tamid. A person needs to go constantly, b'dvekus, in trying to cling to God. Livchon benafsho ubeniflosav asher roed tamid nisim beniflos. To try to constantly see the amazing miracles and wonders in this world. The beginning step to come to that level, you need to first think about lachshov bechelek hanitan lo mamal. You know how it starts? How you create that relationship with God where you're blown away by what God has done? You know how you start that? Start from home. Start by looking at the soul that God put inside you. Everyone says, we need that hand of God come down. Show me a big miracle. I remember once, I don't know if anybody saw the movie Ushpizin. Fabulous movie, Ushpizin. And my wife and I were at a lecture from the actors who were in Ushpizin. They're religious Jews, Charedim, and they gave a talk, they're Balei Tshuva. And while they were giving a talk about their experience, someone from the crowd asked them how they became religious. So the Mrs. Ushpizin, she said that it was amazing. She was driving in the car, and the car started to flip over. We hit a ditch, and we flipped over. And the hand of God, Mamish, came down, took the car, put it back down on the road, and we said, we're changing our lives. And everybody's looking like, what, really? She goes, no, what's with you people? You always need some crazy story to see God's fingerprint in life. You don't need that. It was just simply we woke up one day and realized, what are we doing? What are we living for? I had a similar experience with Amnon Yitzchak. Amnon Yitzchak is fabulous, very funny. Amnon Yitzchak's a lawyer and a Rav, controversial Sephardi Rav. And he was sitting with a Rosh Yeshiva of mine, who was Ashkenaz, sitting with a Rosh Yeshiva of mine in a dentist's office. And the Rosh Yeshiva of mine asked him, how did you become religious? He's a Baal Tshuva, Amnon Yitzchak. So the Amnon Yitzchak answered the same way. You Ashkenazim always need something big. You know how I became religious? I opened up a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It said to me, this is what you're supposed to do when you wake up. This is what you're supposed to do when you go to sleep. And that's how I became religious. So Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger says, a person wants to be able to see God in everything. You know where you start. You know how you do it. Start simple. Start at home. Tzarich mitchila lachshav bechelek hanitan lo mamal. Start with the real gift that God has given you, and that's your soul. What is your soul? How does it do what it does? How does it make you animated and alive? But if you don't recognize yourself and you don't take a good look at who you are, you're lacking in knowledge of God. Kevan sha'afilu atzmo hu eino bochen. What a fabulous idea. That's the Noam Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech says if you don't know yourself, you can't know God. If you don't start by looking at yourself, that's the picture and the image, the window to understand God. It's a mashal of a child who the kid was off from school, so the parent wanted to keep the child busy. So what the parent did was the parent saw a newspaper where it was an intricate map of the world. So the parent ripped up the map and threw it on the floor and said to the kid, here, busy yourself with that map. Kid comes back a minute later and said, she's done. Father said, how are you finished? What are you talking about? All of a sudden he realized on the back of the picture of the map was a simple picture of a human being. And the idea is, you fix yourself, then you could fix the world. You want to understand God? First get to know yourself, what you're about, what you care about in life. You start with yourself, and from there you're able to move outward. That's how he introduces this sefer. He quotes from the Noam Elimelech. With that, we're ready to learn this sefer. Yoshev harav beino lebein atzmo. The teacher is sitting by himself. He's working hard on preparing a shiur that tomorrow he's going to deliver in front of many students. He himself knows this quite deeply. If someone, a friend, comes to him who's at his level of understanding, he could learn the whole thing easily in an hour, even though he has many more insights to say. But however, if he comes in an abbreviated language in front of the Talmidim, they're not going to understand a word. Meaning, it's one thing that you know something clearly, but if you don't know it well enough to present it, you haven't thought how to share the teaching over, you haven't thought how to pass that message, then it's a waste of time. Milim hanechshavim etzlo pshutim uberurim. Things which seem to you clear and obvious, to the ones you're going to deliver it to, it's not so clear. They don't know about the basics that you're talking about. So just because you know it, that doesn't mean a single thing. Alav liftoach lehem akdama, and therefore you need to give a background. It's a nice mushal. Let's see where he's going with this. But the mushal is just because you know something clearly, don't assume when you tell it over, the person has all the details in what you're telling them. You have all the context in what's happening, so it's obvious to you. The other person doesn't have those details. So even though you know it clearly, you need to also work on how you're gonna present it, right? So it says like this. Kashim chevle haleda shall kol inyan chadash. It's always difficult starting something new, a new project. Nobody wants to prepare it. It's work. We're afraid, particular in this endeavor, which is creating a relationship with God. We're afraid we're going to have to break our soul in doing this. Really cause a whole revolution in the house. Mishtokek la'asok besugya zu uba'acheros kefi netias mocha arachev b'lish yisrach levkos l'chrov lo heref al tamidim et seremonim l'kabel dvarim. And we think we're going to have to go over this in some way, in some huge way, without the basics. We think we're going to have to learn Torah day and night without interruption. And that's holding us back from really creating a relationship with God. We have in our heads this image of what's entailed of being a better Jew. It's too much. It's too much. So he says like this, we think we're going to have to, we're going to have to give up our jobs. We're going to have to give up our livelihood. Livater al ritzono. We're going to have to give up our will to want anything anymore. If we really are going to become sincere balei tshuva, we're afraid. We're afraid what's entailed in becoming sincere balei tshuva. We're afraid of it. Notel daf. Let me ask you. I ask you for a favor, says Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger. Just start with one little paper. Start with one paper, umatchil lichtov alav roshe prokim, and begin to write on that paper chapter headers. Don't go for the home run at the beginning. Start simple. Dukmaut vehesberim rishonim. Start with basic understandings. Mashalim v'tablos. Start with analogies and charts. Simple. You'll begin to soon realize that you can't get it all in one shiur. You need to break the whole sugya of coming close to God up into separate, manageable chunks. Manageable and distinct parts. You're going to have to break it up in. Mechapes achar derech lateit kvar b'shir rishon hesper klali sheachlolet rov pratei sugya. And you're going to have to figure out, after you get past the first level, how the second stage is going to fit together with the first. What he's telling you is he's warming you up to get ready to work on yourself. It's a wonderful sefer. He's waking us up. He says, don't be overwhelmed. Start slow. Write out the chapter headers. I need to work on davening. I need to work on learning. I need to work on being a better person. Big sections. Stop. Tomorrow, something new. Let's take one. Let's take one category. Let's work on Torah. Let's talk about how we're going to develop, or I say, tie in what we said before. Let's start with the why. Ask why Torah. By the way, we're going to get to that in the 5 o'clock shiur. Why is Torah the big deal? Why is everything the Torah? Stick around then, or watch on live on www.longestshiur.com. You could follow then. All right. And lo zu bilvad, not only that, when you start going in this step-by-step level, where you start flushing out, he's talking about making a mind map, essentially. That's the big thing nowadays in the way people think. You make a mind map. You start with one core idea, and you allow it to branch out into other sub-ideas till it's manageable, piece by piece. And not only that, makir betocho ki muchan besimcha. You'll begin to realize that you are ready with joy. Shahachaver hahu yishtatef afhu b'shir shalamachar. Meaning, you'll soon realize that fear you had of taking the next step is a wonderful and friendly partner ready to join you. Piruk hasugya prateha, breaking up the whole chapter of change in your life into its details, is the easiest way to begin to create great change and manageable change in your life. That's how you make a difference. We ask that you make a difference. Call in now, text 41444, text the word Torah. We'll send you the instructions on how you can make a donation to Jewish education, or log on at longestshir.com and donate that way as well. We're getting closer and closer to our goal. 18 hours of Torah, lahagdil Torah v'yadir. And remember, every dollar is going to support Torah education. We thank you, and we'll see you in 5 minutes for the next Shiur.